Dr. Kristy Waite, W-A-I-T-E,
Where are you employed, Dr. Waite?
at the Summit County Medical Examiner's Office.
How long have you been there?
5 years.
All right. And what is your position at the Summit County Medical Examiner's Office?
I am a medical examiner.
Okay. And are you the medical examiner?
I'm one of 3.
All right. And prior to working at this medical examiner's office, where were you employed?
I was a fellow at the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner in Richmond, Virginia.
And how long were you employed there?
1 year.
What type of training or education do you have to be, is it a deputy medical examiner?
Yes.
All right. What's your training and education?
So I have 4 years of college, 4 years of medical school, 4 years of anatomic and clinical pathology residency, and 1 year of forensic fellowship.
Okay. Excuse me. And are you a pathologist as well?
Forensic pathologist, yes.
What is a forensic pathologist, or what does a forensic pathologist do?
So forensic pathology is specifically the study of cause and manner of death. We perform autopsies as well as investigations into natural and unnatural deaths that fall into our jurisdiction. We do that by performing autopsies, external and internal examinations, doing reports, taking photographic evidence, and determining cause and manner.
All right, and you're a licensed physician as well?
I am, yes.
All right. Have you ever testified in court as a pathologist before?
Yes.
Approximately how many times?
Over 10 here in Summit County as well as in Virginia.
Okay. And in those instances, were you certified as an expert in the area of pathology?
Yes, I was.
All right. All right, Dr. Waite, I would like you to go over how an autopsy is conducted at the medical examiner's office.
So if a person dies in Summit County and they are either not attended by a physician within the past year or they die of unnatural circumstances, they arrive to our office and we do an investigation. So first we gather all of the information that's relevant pertaining to the case, where they were found, stuff like that. So a scene investigation is done usually if they're not transported to the hospital. So when they get to our office, we do an external examination first. We take photographs of how they arrive to the office with all their clothing, everything like that. Then we remove clothing, take more photographs, diagram everything, examine for external injuries, anything unusual or identifying like tattoos. Then we do an internal examination. We open up the body cavities, remove the organs, as well as open up the head, remove the brain, go through the organs, dissect things, and determine the cause and manner of death.
Okay. Is there any laboratory testing done as well?
Yes, so we do toxicology testing, either on blood, urine, or whatever fluids that we can obtain.
Okay. Did you have a chance to perform an autopsy on Tony Westover?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And I'm going to show you what's been marked for, what is it, Exhibit 50? What's been marked as State's Exhibit 50? Do you recognize that exhibit?
Yes, I do.
What compromises, well, first, how are you able to recognize that exhibit?
So this is the investigation report, my autopsy report, as well as the toxicology report for the case.
Okay, and is your signature on that report?
On the investigation report as well as my autopsy report, yes it is.
Okay. And is that a fair and accurate depiction of the report you generated?
Yes.
And are these reports generated in the normal course of business at the medical examiner's office
Yes, they are.
and kept in the regular course of business as well?
Yes.
And the first thing that you stated that you had is the report of the investigation, and that's what you detailed to the court when you first started explaining how an autopsy is conducted?
Yes, so the investigation report is our investigators who get the call of death. They gather the information of who is reporting to the death, the name and date and location of the decedent, just general information pertaining to the death.
In this case, do you know how you identified Toni Westover?
She was identified by radiology means. So I examined postmortem and antemortem radiology and compared the two and made the identification myself.
Now, in this case, did she come straight to your office from the scene, or do you know she came from a hospital?
So, per the investigation report, she went to the Cleveland Clinic Akron General Hospital Emergency Department first.
Okay. So when she came to you, are you aware she was wearing the clothes she had on that night, or do you believe that she came to you in the hospital gown or what she had on there?
So what I have, she did not arrive in clothing. I do not have any clothing for her.
Okay. All right. One thing I didn't ask about is cause and manner of death. What is the difference between cause and manner of death?
So a cause of death is how somebody dies. It can be cancer, it can be the flu, it can be hanging, it can be fentanyl intoxication. So all of those things cause death. The manner of death differs, and there's only a certain number of manners. So it can be natural, which would be cancer or the flu. An accident, which drug overdoses and motor vehicle accidents fall into accidents. Suicide, somewhat self-explanatory. Homicide is death by hands of another. It is a medical definition. And then there's also undetermined, where we either don't have enough information or we have conflicting information and we can't make a determination.
Okay. Now I would like to talk specifically about the autopsy involving Toni Westover. Did you perform that autopsy on July 26, 2022?
Yes, I did.
And did you prepare a PowerPoint to assist or aid your testimony today?
Yes, I did.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit number 51. It was, how do I get it back up? You have to sign back in.
That one?
And how do I, wait a minute, first of all, I don't want the next slide. Can you do a slideshow? Normally it's animation or slideshow.
There it is.
Okay, thank you.
So, should I do it?
Okay, can you turn, there's a swivel screen. If you want to turn that towards you, you'll be able to see what I'm looking at. And will you please detail what we're looking at on the first screen?
So this first slide is just a title slide with the decedent's name of Toni Marie Westover, a face identification photograph, the case number that was assigned by our office, and the date of death.
Okay. And what are we looking at in this slide?
So these are 3 pictures of her right hand, the back of the hand, the top of the thumb, and the palm, all of which are depicting that there are no injuries on her right hand.
So no defensive type wounds.
No.
And the left hand?
Again, 3 photos demonstrating no injuries to the left hand.
All right, and again, no defensive wounds on her left hand.
Correct.
Is it standard that you take photos of the hand?
Yes, it is.
And please describe for the court what we're looking at.
These are two photographs of a gunshot wound to the back of the neck. So A is a further away photograph showing more so of a general location, and B is a closer up image of the gunshot wound.
Okay, and you said intermediate entrance gunshot wound
Yes, it is.
was stippling. Well, let's break that down a little. What does intermediate entrance gunshot wound mean? Intermediate.
So an intermediate gunshot wound means that there is stippling surrounding the wound, and stippling is particles of burnt and unburnt gunpowder that then partially burn the skin and leave a mark. So it cannot be wiped away. It is not dirt. It is gunpowder. And in B, it is faint, but it is there at the more right-hand side of the wound. There is some black speckles as well as some red pinpoint marks. Those are areas of stippling.
Okay. In terms of the range of the gun, based on your training and education, what does seeing stippling indicate?
So range is difficult to pinpoint. It depends on the weapon as well as the ammunition. However, a general range for an intermediate gunshot wound is anywhere between like 6 and 8 inches to about 10 to 12 inches, give or take, depending upon, again, the firearm and the ammunition.
And when you say 8 to 10 inches, what are you referring to?
The distance away from the firearm to the gunshot wound.
Okay. And when you say the firearm, is it the muzzle?
Correct.
Okay. From the stippling, can you, based on your training and education, get or discern how the gun was pointed from the stippling wedge, or from the stippling?
So this stippling is generally on one side, and it is kind of conical in shape. If you were to look at the wound as a clock, it is generally about from the 1:30 position to about the 3 to 4 o'clock position. So in this instance, because it is only there, I can somewhat discern that the gun may have been held at an angle, but still close enough to leave stippling.
Okay, and when you say at an angle, can you describe it? I can't see your hand. Can you describe what you're saying at an angle?
So if
Objection, Your Honor.
Basis?
She was not there, and she is not investigator. This is
Overruled based on her training and education, she can opine her position as to the gun and the angle of the entrance wound. Go ahead, doctor.
So due to the stippling and because it is a conical shape coming from the wound, to make this conical shape, the gun is usually held at an angle, which doesn't allow anything from like this side to impart, and it only imparts at where it was deposited.
Thank you. May I ask the question, Your Honor? Can you, are we able to circle and do stuff because it's a PowerPoint or no? I don't know.
I hit the annotate. Well, we're about to find out.
Thank you. Okay, so if you can see those pencils, okay, if you touch, hopefully, if you touch one of those pencils, can you circle where the stippling that you were talking about is? Is it working? Oh, it is working. Okay. All right, and I'm going to go to the next slide, so can you hit clear, please? Thank you. Will you please describe for the court what we're looking at?
So these are two photographs of the projectile that was recovered from within the decedent. The first photograph is the projectile itself that was recovered. The second photo is a X-ray showing the projectile within the body.
And will you please describe what we're looking at now?
So this is a photograph that I took from Google and placed the dotted arrow indicating the trajectory of the projectile. So it is a 2D photograph, so it came in from the back of the right neck, traveled down across the spine through the left lung, and I was able to recover the projectile from within the spleen. So the wound path trajectory is from the back to the front, right to left, and downwards.
Would you consider it steeply downward?
Relatively, yes.
And I say that if we're talking about the anatomical position.
Yes.
Okay, and just for the sake of clarification, what's the anatomical position?
So anatomical position is standing upright, face forward, hands down by the sides with the palms facing forward.
Okay, now, with this trajectory, will you please describe the associated injuries that would have come from this bullet?
So this trajectory perforated the 5th through 7th cervical vertebra, so those are within the neck, so it broke through the neck vertebra as well as through the 1st and 2nd thoracic vertebra, which are up at the top of the neck, where the neck meets your torso. It went through the spinal cord, the left lung, the diaphragm, and the spleen.
What effect, if any, would that have had on breathing or the diaphragm?
So the nerves that innervate the 4th, 5th, and 6th, they come out of from those nerve roots from the neck. Those go down to the diaphragm, and the diaphragm helps breathing. So as well as with the spinal cord transection, very, very difficult to breathe.
And can we talk about the amount of blood that was found in her body?
So there was 1,000 milliliters within the left chest and 50 milliliters within the abdomen.
Does that have any significance to you in terms of when the neck wound occurred?
She was still alive when it occurred.
Will you please tell the court what we're looking at in this picture?
So these are 2 photographs of entrance gunshot wounds to the inside of her left arm. I imparted the arrows to indicate the directionality of the wounds. The first wound depicted in picture B is the one that's up closer to her armpit, and from the image you can see there are again black particles surrounding the wound. So again, this is an intermediate gunshot wound.
Can you please circle where, so everybody can see those? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I guess speak into the microphone.
I sure do. Will you please circle where you see those black stippling particles you're referring to?
They're essentially everywhere, but so those are easier to see. These are easier to see.
And can you hit clear, please? Okay. Will you please tell the court what we're looking at now?
So again, this first picture depicts the 2 gunshot wounds. The second picture is the second gunshot wound, which is on the inside of the elbow, and again, traveling up towards the shoulder. This one is a distant gunshot wound. There is no stippling.
Okay. And in terms of, can you say what is distant or what is meant by distant?
So distant range means that there is no evidence on the skin indicating a closer range, as in like a close range or intermediate range. There could be clothing blocking any further evidence, but it is also dependent upon the firearm and the ammunition. Distant is generally about 12 inches or so, give or take, away.
And you had started to mention some of the things that can affect whether stippling is left, such as clothing or things of that nature, and you did not get any of her clothing. Is that a fair statement?
That is correct. I did not receive any clothing.
Okay. Were these fatal? Would these be considered the fatal or non-fatal injuries?
The wounds to her arm are not fatal.
Okay. Will you please describe for the court what we're looking at in this photo?
So these two photographs demonstrate a possible association between the most medial gunshot wound, so the one that's closer to the armpit. That wound has stippling surrounding it, and there's also stippling on the front left of her neck. So it is a possibility that these findings are related. So her arm could have been up in this situation where stippling was able to deposit on her neck from this wound.
Okay, and you just did a demonstration that her arm could have been up like this. Is that what you just did?
Yes.
All right, will you please describe for the court what we're looking at?
So these photographs are of the projectiles recovered within the left shoulder. The first is a X-ray demonstrating the multiple projectiles within the area. B and C are the two different projectiles recovered. One was more intact, the other is more pieces of the projectile with the jacket.
Okay, were each of these projectiles similar?
These two are similar to each other, yes. They each have a more darkened jacket.
Okay, and the other one that we saw, did that one have a black jacket with stripes? Can you discern the third one as well?
Are we able to go back to that picture?
We sure can.
So this picture also looks like it has a darkened jacket.
Okay, so that is the one that was taken, the projectile recovered from the spleen, that one right there, a darkened jacket with the stripes. Is that what we're looking at?
Yes.
Okay, now let me go back to the other one. Oops, sorry. And these are the ones that were taken out of the left shoulder?
Correct.
Okay. And that is a darkened jacket, with, and I say jacket, the projectile's jacket with the stripes on. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, they all look similar.
Excuse me. Will you please describe for the court this?
So this slide is just a summary of the injuries that occurred from the gunshot wounds. There were fractures of the cervical and thoracic vertebra, which is in the neck and the top of the torso. Laceration of the spinal cord with surrounding hemorrhage. Laceration also of the left lung and spleen. That just means that they were cut through by the gunshot wound. The lungs were collapsed. There was blood within the chest cavity and the abdomen, and there was fractures of the left humerus, which is the upper arm bone and shoulder.
And what did you opine as the cause and manner of death in this case?
So the cause of death is a gunshot wound involving the base of the neck and torso. The manner of death is homicide.
And you were not there, you cannot say what happened. Is that a fair statement?
That is correct.
What you can opine is from the one picture, the angle from the way the stippling is. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
And then what you just opined when you had the two photos, the stippling on the arm and the stippling on the neck, her arm may have been up in this position.
That is a possibility, yes.
Now, was there a toxicology report done in this case as well?
Yes.
All right, let me, sorry. You did not perform that toxicology report, but you are privy to that toxicology report. Is that correct?
I did not perform the testing, but I do sometimes interpret the results to determine cause and manner of death, yes.
And that
Yes.
Okay, I would like to go over this toxicology report. Who fills in the top part of the toxicology?
I do not know if it is auto-generated from the information that's within the computer system or if it is manually input, but the toxicologist is responsible for making the report.
And this report, toxicologist would have been Michael Bell.
That is correct.
Now, the results. Ethanol. Will you go over the results starting with ethanol?
So no ethanol was detected. Ethanol is alcohol. There was methamphetamine found within the blood at about a 200 nanograms per milliliter. A screen was also positive for methamphetamine. A urine screen was also performed, which showed amphetamine as well as a metabolite of cannabis.
Okay, so I would like to start back when you said in the serum/blood methamphetamine, 224.3 nanograms per milliliter. First of all, did I say that right? Is that nanograms per
Yes.
milliliter? Okay. Is that toxic levels?
No,
Okay, so did that figure into her cause or manner of death?
it did not help the situation, but it did not cause her death.
Okay. And when I say toxicity levels, does that vary upon the person and their tolerance level?
Yes.
And the methamphetamine, when you said it did not cause her death, but it did not help, does that contribute to maybe how fast or how slow an individual can bleed or bleed out?
So methamphetamine can constrict blood vessels and can lead to possibly bleeding out faster.
The next one is the urine screen. Well, no, serum, screen positive for methamphetamine. So what's the difference between the first one and the second one? One just says serum, one says slash.
So a blood screen, we use an automated machine that does a screen. Screening tests are very broad, and they will pick up a wide range of drugs or substances. To quantitate after the screen, once you find positivity upon the screen, you go back and you look for those drugs specifically to determine a concentration.
And the last screen, urine screen, it says positive for amphetamines. That's different than methamphetamine.
So amphetamine is a metabolite of methamphetamine.
Okay. So what does that tell you as a professional when you find a metabolite in a body?
So considering that we have methamphetamine in the blood as well as amphetamine in the urine, the decedent did use methamphetamine and it metabolized through her system.
Okay. When you see that amphetamine, does that kind of tell you when or how recent the drug was taken?
No.
Did it have time to break down in her body?
The methamphetamine did, yes.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Nixon, any questions of Dr.